actually got tax cuts. Mr. Chair.
Michael Woodhouse.
I move the question be now put.
Chris Farfoy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's no surprise you've given me the call, Mr. Chair, but as we peruse through part one of this bill, there is a plethora of points in this proposed legislation where we could poke holes at. But Mr. Chair, because we could look at whether or not this legislation takes our power companies in Air New Zealand away from the purview of the Ombudsman or the Official Information Act. But I do want to look at Clause 3, where this bill before us takes the power companies that we're talking about in this bill away from the SOE Act and its responsibility to act in a socially responsible manner, Mr. Speaker, because I think when you get to the guts of why Kiwis are so enraged that these asset sales are going ahead, as to why they are quite openly coming up to us when we're out in the streets and signing the petition that we are taking around to try and enforce a referendum to try and stop these asset sales. This is really what upsets them about the fact that these assets are being sold. Because at the moment, our SOEs, our state-owned assets, our power companies, our three power companies, have to act with a dual motive. Yes, they have to make some money, but they also have to act in the best interests of the New Zealand people. And this Act removes that responsibility from our three power companies. So what does that mean? And I think this is what upsets Kiwi people so much, is because Kiwis care about Kiwis, and they know that when these power companies get sold off, and we know that when these power companies get sold off, that the motivation of these companies changes from people and profits to purely profits. And a number of arguments have been made already in the House this evening and this afternoon about how much power prices will go up, somewhere around roughly 12%. And the difference in the amount that Kiwis pay if they are with a private energy company and a SOE energy company. And I believe that the figure is around, on average, a weighted average, Mr. Brownlee, of $256 per annum. So Kiwis know that when the motivation of these energy companies becomes profit, that one thing is certainly going to happen. And that is going to be that our power prices for our average Kiwis, our mum and dad investors, as the government would like to say, are going to be going up. And who is that going to affect? The most vulnerable Kiwis in our country, who at the moment cannot even afford to pay their power bills, let alone buy a stake in their state-owned enterprises. They're struggling to pay the bills to turn the heater on as we speak in this winter. And this government wants to sell our assets off so we can make life harder for them. So we can put their power prices up, because this government ideologically wants to go ahead and say that it's okay to sell our state-owned assets. So what is happening here is our energy companies get hocked off to mum and dad Kiwi investors, this government says, but nowhere in this legislation does it protect our state-owned assets to stay in New Zealand, and our power prices will be going up. So the present in this bill for all Kiwis around the country who right now are struggling to pay the bills is higher power prices. Higher power prices, so it's going to be harder for our elderly and our poor to keep themselves warm in winter as we are now. Now, Jerry's fine. He's nice and warm. He's snuggly over there. He's fine. But people at home, I should correct myself. Mr. Brownlee is nice and snuggly and warm in his seat right now. But Kiwis out there who don't have enough money to be watching this tonight, so they're probably listening to it on their transistor radios, are going to be struggling to pay the bills. And this government wants to put the power prices up, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, these companies are already owned by Kiwis. And that's what Kiwis love about it, because they are owned by Kiwis, so there is social responsibility on those companies to make sure that everyone can afford to pay their power bills. Everyone, not just those who can afford it, but all Kiwis who have a stake in these companies can afford to pay their power bills. But with this bill, Mr. Chair, that is going to change. So thank you very much to the National Party for selling our state-owned assets for all our vulnerable Kiwis. If it wasn't enough to whack our elderly and our young in the budget, They're also going to put the power prices up for our elderly and young in this bill. So, Mr Speaker, I would ask that we have a look at a supplementary order paper put in by my colleague Clayton Cosgrove, Mr Chair, which makes sure that the companies that are in this bill do have to have some form of social responsibility about them, Mr Chair. Mr Chair? Mr Chair?
Jonathan Young.
I was talking about...
I move the question be now put.
Darian Fenton.